Hello YouTube. When speaking about the condition of a group, one faces many obstacles. One of the main obstacles is how to articulate the problem without being dogmatic, insulting, or disingenuous. There will always be someone who will be offended. This is not my concern. However, it is not my intention to purposefully demean another. When emotional, some will become defensive due to semantic as well as prosodic cues. This, unfortunately, leaves the content unaddressed, which should ultimately be the focus. Many people play the game of forcing people into a position of moral inferiority relative to their group. The result is said group becomes a symbol of authority due to their previous mistreatment. This allows them to lord over the other group, using the humiliation endured, real or not, as a platform for altering reality. This is indeed a power gained. It is often said that power corrupts. Power does not corrupt. This is a myth. People who replace thinking with cliches invariably are wrong. This is often the case. Power can provide license for one to blur judgments. This does not make a group or individual immediately blind to all moral or previously held ethical distinctions. Supposedly, black people, due to white guilt, are now put in a position of power. This is the reason why they are so successful, don't you know, at committing a variety of atrocious crimes and actions, which are crimes. Why? Because the white population allows it, of course. You have not heard this? Yep, this is going around. Back to power. Maybe this current dynamic is in part due to the popular American Hollywood affinity for the weak, the downtrodden, and the underdog. What do you think? I say maybe, but most likely no. It is due to the avoidance that power is a means by which certain groups or individuals can more fully express corruption they previously had within. Some would like to create the argument that power has a corrupting influence over anybody regardless of whatever label you attach to them, be it racial, socioeconomic, religious, etc. The action of inhumanity is not in direct statistical relation to the amount of power harnessed. This cognitive content that is held as true avoids responsibility and personal integrity. If a person values soundness of character above corrupting influences, then they will stand fast with the value of integrity. Given enough time and research, one will find that most groups have committed heinous acts of murder, rape, and slavery against another. It is affording power to people who are already damaged, and use said power to gain advantage by treating that other as a resource via deplorable, non-consensual acts. Let's use the classic components of black versus white, shall we? Some blacks take the crimes committed by people long ago and use this information against whites. This creates a dynamic of moral superiority due to the white person's phenotypical traits that is in alignment with the visual that black people have of their ancestral oppressor. Some whites take the high statistical rates of urban crimes committed by blacks and assess the entire group by these actions of the few. Again, you have a moral narrative established for the purpose of mislabeling, creating cognitive dissonance, and establishing moral victory. This comes in handy when both extremes are seeking converts or new pawns for their social and political games. Extremes within both groups thrive off of a lack of information or unwillingness to accept facts. Rarely is all or even a great deal of information known regarding certain historical activities. Some of the members of these groups are not concerned with facts and reality but desperately cling to the past and allows their interpretation of it to define the present. Both groups have people within it who form part of their identities on what they were reported to be, whether that be slave or oppressed for blacks, or guilty or tyrant for whites. They imprison themselves without seeing the common enemy they both share, which is unjust paradigms. Both parties are convinced the other group owes them. A good example of this is when certain white extremists promote that all blacks have equal opportunity and are the sole, not partially, but sole contributor to their poverty. This group will automatically assume that a great majority, if not all blacks, think that whites owes them a share of their resources. They hide behind this. Communication never produces meaningful results, and both groups suffer. They fail to acknowledge there is a difference between justice, vengeance, or inappropriate advancement. Another thing both extremes share is all or nothing thinking, and the willingness to inappropriately shrink paradigms. This irrational position is espoused so only their desired worldview is illustrated. A good example is when a white extremist declares that blacks, note there is never a numerical qualifier here, that blacks embraces a culture of self-defeating behaviors and ideas. Some blacks, in turn, thinks that whites, again no qualifier here, are inherently opposed to fair treatment of black and brown people. It is important to note that generalizations support the default belief system, which ignores the consideration of alternatives to their worldview. The final deception I want to address is when both groups seize the other individuals within said group from not being affected by injustices caused today. They both, correctly and incorrectly, state the other loves being the professional victim. So, in order to play the victim card that they carry in their wallets and purses so proudly, they mine their history, current or not, and steal the injustices their ancestors or other group members suffered. While this is true for some, this is not some social-economic Copernican system for all. Neither group is responsible for the problems in either community. However, as humans, hopefully, they will be willing to work together to create a reality that benefits all. The games that people play will never advance them as a human species. Thank you for listening.